You arrive at the river the way a thought enters a quiet room softly, almost unnoticed, and the evening receives you. Daylight loosens, and cool air lays a calm hand on the water. A hush moves through the reeds like someone smoothing a wrinkled sheet. The breeze is small, but it is enough. It brushes the river's skin, and a circular ripple awakens, a tiny ring widening with patient certainty. You follow it as it travels outward, carrying a message from nowhere to everywhere that the first ripple is a lesson in how motion begins. Nothing dramatic announces it. It starts with touch air meeting water, and the surface answers with a wave. You feel it in your chest because your body is mostly water. Within you, blood moves in rhythm, breath rises and falls, and every heartbeat is a small tide. The river outside mirrors the river inside, and you relax into the symmetry. A duck glides from the shaded bend, simply present. It wears the evening like a shawl. Its body settles into the river the way a pebble settles into sand, fitted and at ease. Where it passes, new ripples bloom overlapping circles that form and fade like thoughts. Waves spread because each water particle nudges the next. Energy moves. The water mostly stays, swaying as the message travels on. You test the idea with your breath. Inhale slowly. Let the air roll in like a tide coming home. Exhale a little longer than you inhaled. Your nervous system listens. A longer exhale tells the body the storm is over. The wandering nerve eases your heart and smooths your thoughts. The river seems to breathe with you, broadening on the inhale, glossing on the exhale. Light softens. The sky wears the color of warm tea. On the surface, brightness breaks into small diamonds and then ends again. The duck's wake draws lines so thin they are almost whispers. The water is a string, the breeze is the bow, and sound and ripple are siblings. Both carry energy without hauling matter along. Closer now, the duck's feathers show their quiet architecture. They overlap like patient shingles, each holding a bead of water that stays round. Droplets round themselves because the surface wants to be small, like a blanket tucking its corners. The duck helps by brushing oil along its feathers, a soft waterproofing. Warmth stays in, chill stays out. You kneel, and your fingers hover above the water. Even without touching, you feel its cool breath. A fly lands and lifts. Tiny rings race outward from the point of contact, racing but never hurrying. Circles cross circles without conflict and vanish as soon as they are born. Your thoughts learn from this, loosening their grip on edges and rounding their corners. Reeds form a green script along the margin, writing in a language the wind can read. Currents fold and unfold like slow origami. Under the surface, roots drink. Above it, a dragonfly stitches a quick seam between banks. Time feels woven rather than measured. Rhythm belongs to the world. The heart finds tempo the way a river finds a path. By listening to what is already there, another ripple starts, smaller than the first, born from a leaf that slides off a branch and kisses the water. The kiss becomes a spreading ring. Gentle. Causes can travel far. You consider your day, the worries you carried, and feel how they thin and widen, losing their sharpness as they move away. The river does not tell you to forget. It shows you how to soften. The air smells mineral and green. Somewhere downstream, a stone rolls and stops. Quiet is not empty. It is full of faint signals you usually miss. The rustle of a vole in the grass, the hollow plip of a bubble breaking, the duck's low breath, almost a hum. Your ears adjust as your attention deepens. This is how sleep begins. A migration from the bright and far to the dim and near. The duck tilts its head, one bright eye reflecting the soft sky. It studies you without alarm. Between you, the river, holds a conversation made of distance and approach. The science of such moments is the science of thresholds. At the boundary where air meets water, where feather meets drop, exchange happens. A boundary is not a wall. It is a place of connection. Faint wind returns, and the surface gathers tiny ridges, capillary waves, traveling wrinkles. They move fast because the water's skin is springy. Larger, slower ripples trail behind the duck, pulled by gravity. Small rides atop large, like a lullaby over a heartbeat. Your breathing follows both tempos. The body likes nested rhythms, clouds. Thin, a pale star appears early, winking in the river before it shows in the sky. Reflection sometimes arrives before direct sight. Understanding can come as a mirror, first soft, inverted, before the source reveals itself. Be patient with what you do not yet see clearly. The duck drifts past, leaving a braided pattern of wakes that reach you and loosen around your ankles. You imagine these lines continuing beyond you, touching banks and stones with news of the ducks. Passing, the world is full of such couriers. Trees send messages along hidden threads. Cells whisper with ions. The river's surface is a whispering field. You sit back and let your spine lengthen. Your jaw unclenches. Your eyelids grow heavier, not because there is less to see, but because there is no need to hold it all open at once. The river can keep. Watch. Upstream, a branch dips and sketches a quick curve, then lifts. The curve unfurls and goes on without the branch. The first ripple has thinned, but it was enough to begin your lesson. Motion can be gentle and meaningful. Change can be slow. And complete dot, you bring your hand to the surface and dip 2 fingers. The water accepts them with a cool welcome. You draw a small circle that expands and walks away from you. It crosses the duck's wake, and for a moment, their rings braid into an oval, then release. Cooperation without negotiation. Harmony without. Meeting in the middle. You feel a braid forming between your outer calm and your inner life. The duck makes a small sound, a syllable shaped by a long lineage of river evenings. It is ordinary and ancient. You answer by easing your breath again, longer out than in, and the two of you share a pace. Your pulse slows into a metronome. Behind your ribs, moving blood writes its own ripples along branching paths. A human river, flowing toward rest. Dusk gathers like a shawl, and the edges of things melt. What remains becomes essential. The tug of current, the weight of your body, the patient drift of the duck, the repeating miracle of a wave that moves energy without moving matter. You feel carried while still. You are part of a larger vessel that needs no destination. The evening is enough. The first ripple is enough. You look toward the next bend where the duck is heading and wonder what stories the current is telling there. You listen, and the water answers in a language you are beginning to understand. You stand at the river's edge and let your listening widen. The evening is quiet, but the quiet is not empty. It is stitched with small signals, a hush in the reeds, a soft clink of pebble on pebble, the faint tap of water against wood. The river speaks in the grammar of motion. It sends vowels as waves and consonants as small collisions. You do not translate with sentences. Your body understands by rhythm. Your breath loosens and matches, the rise and fall traveling across the surface like sleep's slow tide. A distant plop reaches you as sound before you see it. Then the circle appears, a ripple running outward, thinning as it goes, energy passed, hand to hand across a crowd of water molecules that mostly sway in place. This is how waves converse. The message moves while the messengers stay. A fish has nudged the air, and the river answers with a sentence you can read with your eyes. The duck, patient and low, turns its earless head toward the sound, measuring. Distance by delay. Water carries sound quickly. Air answers more slowly, and your hearing learns to measure that gap, the way dusk measures the gap between light and night. you study the current. What looks like a single sheet is an orchestra of layers. At the bottom, the river drags its feet against stones and slows. Near the top, the wind combs it forward. Between them, thin planes slide past one another, making shears and small twisting. Rooms called eddies. Behind the duck, the flow curls like smoke, and then unwinds. Each eddy is a syllable the current uses to edit itself, a roundabout that returns lost momentum to the main path. Patterns rise, loosen, and rise again. You crouch and watch a reed lean. Its tip dips and lifts with neat periodicity, nodding to the invisible passerby. Energy has shape, and the shape repeats. The duck shifts weight with hardly a thought, and the water answers with faint standing waves around its chest, little hills that hold their place even as the bird glides through them. Language is not only spoken outward, it is spoken at the boundary, where two things meet and make a third thing between them. You sense that boundary in your own quiet skin. Breath at the lips, pulse at the wrists, warmth at the surface, coolness within. Gravity drafts many of the phrases. A crest rises and wants to fall, and gravity makes the wanting real. When waves lengthen, gravity rules their gait. When waves are tiny and quick, the skin of the water, its surface tension, takes the lead. You notice both kinds braided together. Long sighs pulled by weight and small shivers held by skin. The duck's wake writes both at once, rail for anyone who cares to touch. If your fingers rested there, you would feel alternating lift and ease, like a whispered metronome that keeps perfect time without ever needing to shout. A breeze arrives, modest and kind. It pushes on the river with many fingers, each finger making a wrinkle. The wrinkles gather into lines that march downstream like pilgrims headed toward rest. Wind does not simply slide across. It hands energy into the surface, and the surface carries it forward. Not far from you, two wave trains meet at an angle and sow a delicate diamond field. Where peaks meet peaks, the glow lifts. Where troughs meet troughs, the color deepens. Interference is not conflict. It is a chorus finding harmony by sharing space. Your thoughts, once busy, begin to move the same way. Two concerns arrive from different directions, cross, and something gentler appears. At their meeting, the river shows you how to let structure emerge without forcing it. You release your jaw and feel the slow switching of your inner tides. With longer exhales, the wandering nerve sends its comfort downward. Your heart takes the suggestion, and your pulse finds a steadier drum. Inside you, blood writes its own ripples along branching paths. A private current memorizing the route-honed data water, Strider hovers near the edge, almost weightless. Its feet dent the river's skin without breaking it, dimples held by surface tension like hammocks cradling tiny moons. Each step sends capillary ripples ahead, like scouting whispers. Predators read those whispers. Prey read them too, even small. Signatures are legible in this fluent place. You imagine your own small signals traveling through rooms and hours, sensed by people you will never meet, messages of tone, posture, and patience that say more than any speech you might have prepared. Beneath the surface, a different alphabet flows. Pressure grows with depth, and sound hurries through like news in a crowded hallway. The duck's feet paddle with an easy rhythm, and vortices bloom and break free behind them, spinning rings that drift like miniature galaxies. Turbulence looks chaotic, yet it carries information about speed, size, and direction. If you could see with equations alone, you would watch those patterns unfurl, exchange energy, and fold back into quiet, a negotiated truce that keeps the whole river moving. You reach out and skim the water with 2 fingers. Cold writes itself into your skin. The surface bends around you, and a train of circular waves runs forward and away. The speed of those waves depends on their length. Long ones lope, short ones scurry. Your fingers lift, and the train continues. A letter placed into a postal stream that knows every address by slope and shore. Even after you stop, the message goes on without you, proof that release is its own kind of action. Across the river, a kingfisher calls, a bright beat of sound that bounces off water and returns thinner. Echo is the river's way of checking its own edges. The duck tilts its head once more, eye glossy with evening light, and resumes its easy line. Its body sits low, because water pushes back as much as it is pushed. That equal push has a name you do not need to memorize to feel. You sense support. You remember that floating is a partnership, a conversation of pressure and shape dot at the bend. A fallen trunk deflects the flow and makes a shadowed pool. Leaves circle there in a patient carousel, some sinking, some rising again when air trapped. Beneath loosens and climbs free. The pool is a quiet paragraph inside the river's long chapter. Eddies preserve stories the main current would otherwise forget. You think of your own mind, how a gentle pocket can hold an idea long enough for it to unfold, and you promise yourself more gentle pockets. Light pours itself thinner. The sky's sentence shortens to a few careful words. Small waves turn the yaw. Last color into confetti, and then into ash. You listen harder, and more details arrive. The papery brush of a moth against a reed, the soft cluck the duck makes when it finds a tidbit near the surface, the distant hush of evening air moving through. Pines. The chorus feels balanced, no voice louder than it needs to be. Every sound makes room for the next dot now, and then the river speaks in negatives. The absence of ripples where a fish pauses, the sudden still eye where a swirl collapses. Silence is part of the language, punctuation that lets meaning breathe. Between notes, you feel your thoughts settle into wider spacing. What remains becomes coherent, a sequence of simple perceptions, unargued and sufficient. The mind understands by empty spaces as well as by filled ones. You breathe, listen, and let the river finish the thought for you, preparing your mind for what the duck will teach next. The duck draws closer now, its gentle wake curling like ribbons behind it. The light of the late day clings to each droplet on its back, turning them into tiny spheres of gold. They do not spread and sink as you might expect. Instead, they rest, perfectly round, like beads laid on velvet. You lean in, curious about how something so soft can resist the weight of water-dot feathers are more than decoration. Each one is a precisely engineered structure, branching into barbs, which split into even finer barbules. And those barbules are lined with microscopic hooks that clasp together like zippers. This lattice traps pockets of air close to the duck's skin, keeping it buoyant and warm. Air, you remember, is a poor conductor of heat. In winter, that trapped layer is a shield. In summer, it is a cushioned dot. You notice how the water droplets on the feathers hold their shape. This is surface tension at work, the tendency of water molecules to cling to one another, forming a skin-like layer at the surface. The droplets prefer to keep themselves compact, minimizing their exposed area, and so they curl into rounded gems. Normally, these gems would flatten and slide into the fabric of whatever they land upon. But here, they stay separate, perched delicately. Is because the duck wears an invisible coat of oil. With its beak, it reaches toward the base of its tail, where a special gland, the uropygial gland, secretes a waxy substance. This oil is drawn along each feather, polished into every strand, and the result is hydrophobic armor. Water cannot soak in. It slips away. The river can embrace the duck, but it cannot invade it. The duck pauses to preen, twisting its neck in impossible curves. It plucks at one feather, realigns it, and smooths another into place. You realize this is not idle grooming. It is maintenance. Like a sailor tending to ropes and sails, the duck keeps its insulation in working order. A single feather out of line can open a seam where water might creep in. You remember that flight, too, depends on feathers. The same structures that repel water also catch air. Each wing feather is shaped to guide wind smoothly over its surface, generating lift. Even here on the water, those aerodynamic principles remain. When the duck shifts its wings slightly, it balances more easily against the push of a current or a playful breeze. Its small adjustments are like a tightrope walker's, precise, subtle, continuous. The down feathers beneath the outer layers are different. You cannot see them, but you know they are there, short and fluffy, with no neat hooks to lock them. Together, they are designed for insulation, not for sleekness. They trap more air, adding another thermal layer beneath the waterproof shell. This two-part system, sleek outer contour feathers and warm inner down, is the reason the duck can linger on a cool river without shivering as it turns slightly toward the center of the current. You notice how it tilts just enough to offset the river's pull. The physics here are simple yet elegant. By adjusting its body's angle, the duck reduces drag on one side, letting water flow past more easily. This balance of forces keeps it in place without constant paddling, conserving energy. In your own life, you think, balance often comes not from pushing harder, but from adjusting quietly. Droplets slide from its back and hit the water with soft, concentric ripples. Each ripple is a reminder of the invisible boundary between air and liquid. Surface tension allows the droplet to stay intact during the fall, only to break apart when it meets its match. The river accepts each one without fuss, folding it into its endless motion. The sunlight changes again, and the feathers gleam differently, bronze now, with shadows tucked into their folds. This shifting shimmer is partly due to structure, not just pigment. Microscopic ridges in the feather scatter light in many directions, a phenomenon called structural coloration. Some of the iridescence you see is born from physics, not from dye. It is the same principle that colors a butterfly's wing or a soap bubble's skin. The duck stretches one wing outward, and for a moment you see the layered arrangement in profile. The longer flight feathers lie like overlapping blades, each curved just enough to control the air. Beneath them, the coverts form a smoother surface, directing the flow. Even while resting on the water, the duck keeps its flight gear in readiness. As though it knows the sky is never far away, you watch it fold the wing back into place, feathers sliding into alignment as if guided by memory. The motion is slow, deliberate, and when it is done, there is no sign of disturbance. Just the seamless surface of a living craft, perfectly sealed against the elements. The wind picks up slightly, and small waves bump against the duck's chest. You half expect it to rise and paddle, but it does not. Instead, it lowers its head, streamlining itself so the water parts around it more easily. Less resistance means less energy lost. It is a reminder that survival often comes from efficiency, not force. Your gaze returns to the droplets still clinging to its back. They are smaller now, merging with one another, rolling toward the edges and dropping away. In those small spheres, you see miniature reflections of the sky, each one a world contained in a bead. The duck carries whole fragments of the evening on its back until they slip away, returning to the larger mirror of the river. A sudden shake sends a fine spray into the air, catching the last of the light. The droplets hang for a heartbeat, each refracting a tiny rainbow before falling back into the water. You feel the cooling mist on your skin. Just like the duck, your body is covered in fine barriers, your own skin's oils that keep you from drying out too quickly, your hair that shelters heat. The principles of protection and balance are shared across life, repeated in countless forms. The duck resumes its gentle drift, feathers neat, body poised. The science you have just witnessed is folded so naturally into the softness of its being that it does not feel like mechanics at all. It feels like harmony, a perfect conversation between form and function, beauty and survival. You realize that every movement, every droplet, every adjustment is part of the duck's quiet dialogue with its surroundings. And you, in watching, have become part of it too. You stand with the river to your left and the sky opening like a slow-breathing bell. The sun leans lower, and everything it touches turns tender. Light arrives at an angle now, sliding across the water instead of falling straight through. Long paths through the air make colors ripen. Blue thins, gold thickens. What you call sunset is a negotiation between light and the world it crosses. Shorter wavelengths, violets and blues, scatter first, nudged aside by molecules and fine dust. What remains for your eyes are longer notes, reds and ambers, mellow as late music. The name for this scattering is less important than the warmth. On your face, the river receives the colors and translates them into motion. Each small wave becomes a brushstroke. Where a crest leans toward you, it gathers brightness like a lifted cheek. Where a trough sinks, the tone deepens into wine. The surface is a restless painter. The duck's silhouette moves across this canvas. Of liquid fire, a quiet signature written and erased. Air carries more moisture now. Tiny droplets hang there as patient mirrors. Some scatter light almost evenly, softening the scene. Others are bigger and send light forward, making halos near the sun and veils across distant trees. You feel the humidity in your own breath, a closeness that slows evaporation on your skin and cools you gently. Color is measurement as much as adornment. As brightness falls, your pupils widen. Cones that read detail and hue begin to hand their work to rods, which favor black and silver. The world moves toward softness. This shift has a rhythm, the eye's evening tide, and you float on it. The duck turns, and for a heartbeat, the sun lines its edges in copper. A single drop on its back flares like a bead of fire, then vanishes with a tilt. Light on water is governed by angles more than by distance. Reflection is geometry in conversation with motion. Between ripples, the riverbed shows where it grows shallow. Stones wait like cooled stars. At some angles, glare erases depth. At others, the glare slides away and the world below opens. A pair of polarized lenses could choose one view over the other by setting light. Even without them, you sense the order beneath the shimmer. A breeze braids fine corrugations across the surface. They act like many small mirrors, tilted every which way. Each mirror catches a sliver of sky and flings it toward you or away. Where hundreds align by chance, the slivers stitch into a bright thread that drifts across the current, unravels, and forms again. You follow it without needing to arrive. Shadows lengthen like cool cloth laid over a warm shoulder. On the far bank, reeds turn black against the gold, their reflections drawing twin ladders into the water. The duck passes between them. Its wake lays down V-shaped letters that briefly hold the sky and then let it go. Writing and unwriting, the river keeps its gentle script. Above the horizon, thin clouds drift like pages. Sunlight grazing their edges breaks into flame scattering again, this time through droplets larger than molecules. Near the sun, the veils glow brightest. Farther away, color fades to rose, then blue-gray, as though a room were dimming its lights, one switch at a time. You think about the distance light has traveled to reach you, 8 minutes from the star. Then a last slow filter through kilometers of air. Dust from fields, salt from seas, smoke from far-off cook fires all play a part. The day you see has been edited by the planet's small labors. Even insects lifting moisture as they rise contribute. Nothing here is separate. The color is a committee's kindness. The duck dips its beak and lifts it. A necklace of droplets. arcs back into the river. Each bead becomes a tiny lens, inverting a sliver of the world. You catch a miniature tree, a pocket sunset, a glint the size of a seed. Gravity gathers the beads, and they fall home, sending ripples outward edged with molten copper. Warmth travels with light, and warmth is a kind of permission. As the sun lowers, stones and soil release what they stored. Warm air rises. Cooler. Air slides along the water. The gradient settles your skin, as if a gentle hand were evening your pulse. The duck senses it too, drifting toward shallows where the last light lingers. An insect hum begins. Midges gather in columns that look like smoke, but are only bodies moving up and down. The stacks mark still air, lanterns without flame. Birds know these places. Fish know them too. The duck veers near one column and murmurs, a sound barely larger than breeze. Now the sun's disk touches the tree line. Edges soften. Leaves become silhouettes. The sky's brightness shrinks until it sits behind the trees like a thought waiting for the right words. On the water, a long road of light breaks into stepping stones. Each step blooms, glows, and goes out beneath the duck's passing dot. So much of this beauty arrives from simple rules repeated many times. Scatter, reflect, refract, repeat, reduce, return. The river makes complexity from patience. Your mind follows, untangling without effort. Breathing matches the broader rhythm. In with the gold, out with the blue. Your shoulders drop. The space between thoughts lengthens. Clouds above deep into embers. A faint green might flash at the last instant if the air is clear and the horizon flat, a quick spectral trick or of bending light. Perhaps not tonight. Contentment does not require spectacle. The ordinary is already extraordinary when given. Time to speak. The duck glides through the final bar of sunlight and seems lit from within. Then the bar withdraws and shadow gathers like a soft tide. The river keeps a memory of brightness in a silver sheen that lingers after the source has slipped away. Your eyes adjust, trading color for sensitivity, cones for rods, story for atmosphere. The scene becomes ink and glass. Wind fades. Small waves relax into longer, lower swells. Glossy sparks turn to velvet. Inside you, the nervous system steps back from alertness. The mind leaves the many for the one, then the one for the almost. The science of evening becomes the art of letting go. A bat skims the margin, cuts a curved line, and is gone. On the far bank, a heron stands like a stroke of charcoal. All waiting, no worry. The duck settles near a cushion of watergrass, an oval of calm. Night asks shorter questions. The answers are slower smiles. The sun withdraws completely. A violet. Hush replaces gold. Along the western edge, color lingers like the aftertaste of something simple and sweet. Up high, the first star declares the next chapter. Its light is older than the day, but it feels new, like a suggestion you had almost remembered. On the water, the last warm reflections fold into muted silver. The duck's wake no longer burns. It breathes. Relieved of glare, the river shows. Calmer grammar. Thin lines drift and merge, as if writing could continue without ink. You feel your own momentum settling, attention becoming buoyant instead of busy. The evening has translated physics into comfort and numbers into tone. You have learned by watching, and your body has learned by matching. The duck floats as if it has known this lesson all along. In your chest, a softer light remains, steady but low, like coals that will last the night. You close your eyes for a breath, and still see the gold behind them, darkening to amber, then to smoke, then to rest. When you open them, the river is a mirror again, ready to hold the moon. The duck stirs, and the surface answers with a hush that feels like agreement. You sit where the bank is low and the grass is cool, letting evening wrap you like a soft blanket. The river seems almost motionless, a dark pain, yet the quiet is only a treaty among small motions. A lazy swirl, a nodding reed, the duck breathing. In the slowest part of the current, stillness is not a pause. Stillness is balance. Your shoulders sink a little deeper into calm tonight. Your body knows this. Inhale, and the chest rises like a low tide. Exhale, and muscles release. Even at rest, the diaphragm moves. The heart leans into its next beat, and blood slips past valves with a hush. Tiny muscles at the base of your skull make minute corrections so your head stays level. Equilibrium is a conversation micro-adjustments, agreeing on peace. The duck keeps the same conversation in water. It looks asleep, yet it is busy with balance. The river pulls, buoyancy answers. Gravity asks, displaced water replies. Now and then, a webbed foot sketches a slow figure 8 beneath the surface, not to travel, but to stay. Those small strokes shed paired vortices that cancel drift, like a sailor trimming a sheet. What looks like stillness is choreography tuned. Until the sun's meet zero dot night leans in, and the surface cools. A thin skin forms where water meets air, a taut film made by molecules holding hands. Capillary ripples wrinkle that skin when a gnat lands, then smooth when it lifts. The duck wears a microclimate, a faint halo of warmer water and insulating air, caught in feather and down. At the boundary between bird and river, work continues. Heat leaves slowly. Water is refused, forces quietly solved, that you hold your palm above the surface and feel cool rising. Heat is motion at a small scale, and motion climbs from warmer to colder. Places. In your blood, the same gradients flow. Oxygen walks from air to blood and from blood to cells because the numbers favor it. Rest is crowded with exchanges ions sliding through gates, neurotransmitters drifting across synapses, a million doors opening and closing with courteous silence. Darker now. Vision gives more work to rods, and edges soften. The brain saves energy, preferring pattern over needles of detail. A quiet web inside the default mode network steps forward, like a night watch, sorting memory into gentler shapes. The duck tucks its beak and lets one eyelid fall, while the other stays thinly open. It practices unihemispheric sleep, letting half the brain rest while the other keeps watch. Many waterfowl do this on open water, where vigilance is safety. Rest is not all or nothing. It is wisely PORTIONED that the current braids around a submerged stone and recombines. Where the flows meet, turbulence briefly cancels, leaving an oval of silk, the river's sigh. Even the riverbed has lullabies. Friction steals a breath of energy from swifter water and offers that warmth to the air. You feel only smoothness, but the arithmetic hums underneath. Breathe again, longer out than in. A slow exhale nudges a wandering nerve that calms the heart and widens vessels. With each breath, baroreceptors report stability to the brainstem, and the brainstem answers downshift. Heaviness arrives in the limbs, the jaw loosens. The body was built for this truce. Around you, small lives continue their measured work. Snails graze a film you cannot see. Microbes distill fallen leaves into simpler sweetness the river carries away. Bubbles slip from stems and rise with speeds set by their size, pearling the surface with quick, tiny bells. You trace a single water molecule in imagination. For now it rocks in place, jostled by neighbors, passing energy like a whisper in a crowd. If a breeze arrives, the whisper becomes a wave and the molecule barely travels, though the message marshes on. If the duck stirs, pressure rises for an instant, and the molecule yields, then returns. Rest is local. Flow is communal. You lower 2 fingers to the river. The surface bends before it breaks. For a moment, cohesion wins. Then a ring forms and wanders outward with patient speed. Your pulse synchronizes with that ring, the oldest game between body and world. You lift your hand and watch the ring go on without you. Letting go is a kind of stability, too. From the reeds, a cricket starts and stops, testing the margin between sound and silence. Your ear threads each chirp across the evening, a measured line to walk into sleep. Rhythm, kept gently, persuades the brain to idle lower. Alpha waves yield to slower ones, and you hover at the slipway of dreams. Unafraid to launch. The duck settles a finger width deeper as it exhales. Trapped air compresses. Displaced water lifts back. The suns hold. Inside your chest, the same arithmetic protects you. Pressure meets pressure. Volume answers volume, and the small engines turn without grind. A steady state is not sealed water in a jar. It is a river whose inputs and outputs agree. You close your eyes and keep listening. Inside, ions trade places. Sodium leaves, potassium returns, calcium knocks and is admitted for a moment, then ushered out. Every cell maintains its charge like a lantern trimmed low. The labor is tireless but gentle, and it costs less when you stop asking for so much light. When you open your eyes, the duck has drifted no more than the length of a feather. The river holds it because slope, pull, and opposing frictions meet near zero. Your breath hovers at the top of an exhale, that lovely held note before the next tide. The world waits with you. Stillness, you realize, is memory practicing in place. Body remembering how to be simple, the river remembering how to be clear. In this quiet, tomorrow does not press. Time widens and thins until it feels transparent. The duck lifts its head. The current offers a slow invitation around the bend. You feel it too, a curiosity, unhurried and kind, about where this water has been and where it will go when night is done. You sit by the same bend and let the river tell its long story in a quiet voice. It begins, as many stories do, with a single traveler. One water molecule at your feet, a tiny V of oxygen and hydrogen held by invisible attraction. It rocks in a place, jostled by neighbors, then slides forward as the current nudges it along. It does not know destination. It only knows the shape of the path. Long before tonight, that molecule tasted the sky. It rose from a sun-warmed lake far away, lifted by heat that loosened its bond with others. As vapor, it joined a caravan of air, riding thermals that curled upward. Higher, the air thinned and cooled. A molecule slowed, clung to companions, became a droplet, then a cloud. Cloud becomes promise. Wind herds it across mountains. On one side, air climbs and sheds what it cannot hold. On the other, the world waits thirstily. Dust and salt and pollen serve as seeds. Around them, droplets gather until weight wins. A fall begins. As rain, the molecule touches larch needles, granite, faces, and soil turned by roots and worms. Some runs off along slope, finding rills that braid into rivulets that comb into a stream. Some slips downward through pores, joining groundwater that moves slower than footsteps. Underground, it dissolves minerals that flavor taste and feed life calcium. Magnesium, iron, the river's quiet spice rack. Freeze and thaw carve the path. In winter, water that seeped into cracks expands as ice, prying stone apart. In spring, thaw returns the splinters to the channel. The bed rearranges by season. Your molecule rides over gravel newly woken, the stonescape tuned by frost. Not all journeys head downhill. A leaf floats. A beaver dam lifts the level. A flood spreads the river across its plain, where silt settles like soft punctuation. When the surge recedes, oxbows remain crescent memories of earlier meanders. Water remembers by changing the land, by writing in curves you can read from the sky. Now the duck drifts past, and a small pressure wave bumps your molecule sideways. It spins into a tiny eddy, circles once, and returns to the main thread. That spin feels familiar because water likes company. The molecule is polar with ends that behave like soft magnets. They line up, break, and line up again, passing energy with elegant ease. Sunlight warms a thin skin at the surface. Evaporation lures some molecules away. Cohesion holds others back. Your traveler resists for now and continues. It slides around an old log furred with algae and rushes past stones webbed with caddisfly houses. On the underside of the surface, a whirl's low pressure lifts it for an instant to air, then lets it sink again. You think of the sea. All rivers practice returning there. In a delta, fresh water slackens and braids into many arms. Salt from. The ocean moves in with the tide, heavier and sly, forming a wedge that glides beneath the lighter river plume. Your molecule may follow that wedge to open water, where currents like highways circle the globe gyres at the top, deep ribbons. Below, that may not surface again for centuries. Sometimes the journey closes sooner. A plant lifts the molecule through its roots, pulls it upward through xylem by the draw of evaporating leaves, and releases it through 1,000 tiny mouths into evening air. Transpiration joins evaporation, stitching the land's breath to the sky's breath. Forests seed their own rains this way, and rivers, in time, listen. Your own body tells a parallel story. You drink, and the molecule enters your blood, hitching a ride in a stream that loops through your heart and returns again, carrying heat one way and waste another. In cells, it serves as solvent and stage. Proteins fold in its embrace. Tiny turbines. In membranes harvest energy by letting protons slide downhill, using differences the way rivers use gravity. Then the molecule leaves through breath as mist or through skin as quiet vapor and rejoins the world's open cycle. The river remembers mountains because it carries them. Suspended silt turns the water the color of tea. With every bend, the load lightens and a bit settles, building sandbars where willow and cottonwood take root. Their shade cools the channel, slowing evaporation and easing stress for fish. Feedback is the river's teacher. What water moves changes. What water becomes. You trail your fingers and feel small cold and warm patches. Springs seep from deeper rock winter, held in stone, while shallows bake sunlight into their thin skin. Mixing erases edges, but for a while, the differences ride side by side like braided threads. Even temperature. The river remembers before. It grows uniform downstream. A mayfly lands and lifts. Trout rise and fall. The duck murmurs, making a necklace of ripples that carry outward until they thin into the general breath of the stream. Your molecule rides the necklace a little way, and then drifts free. Memory here is not a diary with words. It is the persistence of pathways, the favoring of low places, the habit of return. Night deepens. Stars appear, and the path of the galaxy smears across the black like milk poured. Your molecule reflects a star for the length of a blink then. A different one as the surface nods. Starlight meets stone in a handshake so delicate it seems imaginary, yet here you are, watching it take place. The duck closes one eye, opens it, and turns. Its wake threads the moon's first silver into the fabric of the river. Your molecule glides through that thread and carries a hint of light for an instant, then trades it to a neighbor. Energy passes. Matter mostly stays. This is the gentle commerce that builds a world, and always the sea calls. If your traveler reaches it, waves welcome with a slow roll. Evaporation speaks again, and the choice returns. Rise or remain, wander or wait. There is no wrong answer. The cycle completes either way. The world runs on loops, not lines. Back at the bend, the river keeps it steady dark. The duck has drifted toward a stand of reeds. You listen to all the roads in the water at once, the quick skin current, the lazy middle glide, the slow near bottom. Creep, your molecule chooses none. It simply follows the pressures that press most kindly. You blink, and a gnat skims the surface, propelled by feet that dent the water without breaking. Capillary waves run ahead like news. Your molecule hears the news and quivers. Then the message passes on. The language of the river is always present, even when you are quiet. Tonight, memory does not ask you to hold everything. It asks you to notice how the world holds itself. The molecule you imagined is already other places in other times. Cloud, frost, tear, tea, tide. You feel larger for tracing it, not because you own its path, but because you belong to the same patient circle. The duck lifts its head and points toward the darker reach where current threads between stones. Patterns wait there, braids and standing waves, vortices that blossom and fade, silent arithmetic printed on moving water. You rise without haste, ready to read what the river writes next. You rest your gaze on the moving skin of the river, and at first it seems without plan, a restless shimmer of light and shadow, ripples crowding and fading without any order. But the longer you watch, the more you notice. Beneath the apparent randomness, there is repetition, rhythm, and grace. A river does not hurry, yet it builds its sentences with care, arranging shapes the way a poet chooses words. A patch of current strikes a half-submerged stone and splits into two streams, each curling away in a spiral. These spirals, vortices, unwind downstream, trailing long tails of softer eddies. They are cousins to the whirlwinds that dance in dust and to the great rotating storms of the atmosphere. In water or in air, the same physics guides them. Energy spins into organized motion, conserving what it can before friction slowly erases it. If you were to follow a single leaf caught in the vortex, you'd see it circle toward the center and drift outward again, tracing loops within loops. Its path feels almost alive, but it is simply the water negotiating forces. The turning preserves momentum while sharing space with the steady downstream pull. Even turbulence has rules. It is the choreography of chaos, not chaos alone. Eyes begin to detect a rhythm in the wavelets that march across the surface. Some are born from the wind, brushing the river in long lines. Others are spawned by passing fish or the quiet paddling of the duck. Where two sets of waves meet, they interfere, combining into new shapes. Peaks may meet peaks, building higher ridges, or peak may meet trough, canceling into calm. The interference pattern drifts slowly, like a thought moving through your mind, reappearing in different places, familiar, yet never identical. Downstream, the duck glides into a patch where the ripples have aligned into a chevron pattern. The Z-shaped wake it creates is a kind of living geometry. Each arm of the V is formed where the waves from its body reinforce each other in perfect timing. The angle of that V isn't arbitrary. It's tied to the duck's speed, the same way a boat's wake narrows as it moves faster. Mathematics is folded into the duck's trail without its knowing. A proof written in water dot near the shallows. Strands of submerged grass sway with the current, their tips tracing repeated arcs. The water flows past them in alternating swirls, forming what scientists call a Kármán vortex street, a sequence of vortices shedding one after the other, left, then right, then left again. It is the river's heartbeat, pulsing in fluid form. This same pattern can be seen in clouds curling behind islands or in the trails of smoke behind tall buildings. Nature reuses what works. A single feather floats by, caught briefly in an eddy. You notice the delicate curve of its barbs, each one narrowing in gentle proportion. That curve matches a mathematical sequence known as the Fibonacci spiral, a growth pattern that appears in pine cones, sunflower heads, and the spiral shells of nautiluses. Feathers, though designed for flight, carry the same aesthetic. Natural balance between efficiency and beauty. Even the duck's wing, folded now against its side, holds this hidden ratio. The duck drifts closer to the main current, where two flows meet and weave together. The boundary between them is not a sharp line, but a wavering seam, marked by tiny whirlpools that form and fade. This border is like the edges between weather systems, where air masses mix and new shapes are born. Watching it is like watching a conversation between two languages that share certain words. Sunlight glances off the surface, making bright lenses that drift with the ripples. These spots of brilliance appear where small waves focus the light into converging lines, just as a glass lens bends rays together. Beneath these glowing patches, pebbles seem closer and sharper, while in the shadows beside them, they retreat into soft blur. It's a reminder that perception is shaped by structure, that what we see depends on how energy is arranged before it reaches us. The breeze shifts, and new waves layer over the old, creating Moir patterns, interference ripples, that shimmer as they move, like silk brushed by an unseen hand. In your mind, you match them to other patterns, the repeating dunes of a desert, the striations of wind-shaped snow, the grain of wood under varnish. Whether in sand, ice, or water, the laws are the same. Only the medium changes. You lean closer and see how the tiniest details mirror the larger forms. Small spirals curl off the tips of bigger ones. Little waves ride the backs of larger swells, which themselves are riding the long slope of the river. This is fractal geometry, where a pattern repeats at different scales. The world, it seems, is built to echo itself. The duck tips its head into the current, letting the flow slip evenly along each side of its beak. Its eyes close halfway, as though listening to the water's touch. Behind it, its weight ripples outward, joins other ripples, and is absorbed into the general weave. Nothing here is wasted. No motion is lost forever. Energy changes shape, but not presence. You think about the patterns inside your own body, the spiral of DNA that writes your every cell, the branching of arteries and veins that echo the limbs of trees, the rhythm of your heart that mirrors the marsh, alternating vortices in the river's flow. Patterns are not only around you, they are you. The evening light deepens, and shadows stretch into the water. In the dimmer surface, patterns remain, but they feel quieter now, less insistent. Eddies slow, and the breeze eases, leaving the water to its own designs. You realize that the comfort you feel is not from knowing exactly how these shapes form, but from seeing that they return. Predictability in nature is a kind of kindness. The duck glides into the darkening seam between two currents, and you follow its path with your eyes until the last light catches its head. Around it, small whirlpools turn, unwind, and vanish like thoughts that dissolve into sleep. The surface looks random again, but you know now that the order is still there, just gentler, hidden beneath the night dot above. A moth flutters low, its reflection rippling like an echo on the water. The duck doesn't stir. It trusts the river's patterns to keep it steady. You feel the same trust seeping into you, a quiet acceptance that the world has its own symmetry, its own repeating harmonies. Whether or not you measure them, your breath falls in time with the subtle rhythm of the current. Inhale with a small crest, exhale as it dips. Even the act of breathing feels like participating in the pattern, joining the chorus without needing to know the whole song. In the deepening blue, you begin to see the river less as a surface and more as a layered tapestry, threads of speed, threads of temperature, threads of light and shadow, woven together by forces too old and steady to notice themselves. The duck is just one stitch among billions, and so are you. Somewhere downstream, Unseen bends and stones will rearrange these patterns. New eddies will form, new wakes will cross, and the same harmonies will appear again in different notes. This is the gift of repetition, not sameness, but the assurance that the song continues. You take one last look at the place where the currents meet, where spirals bloom and fade like invisible flowers, and feel the pull of curiosity. The patterns are changing even now, sliding toward the next part of the river's language. You sit with the river and let the dark arrive in layers. Color loosens its hold, and sound steps forward. The first notes are small, a reed ticking as the current plucks it, a bead of water letting go, the brushed wing of a moth. Then the chorus gathers. Insects lace the upper air. The river sings a low line beneath. Somewhere a night bird adds a careful question. The duck speaks first in near silence. A throat sound more vibration than voice, a syllable that barely chooses to be air. It is a language pared down for open water soft enough to hide from foxes, clear enough for kin at arm's length. You feel it more than you hear it, a suggestion against the skin. On water, low notes travel far, high notes fade quickly. The chorus arranges itself by physics. Before it arranges by, will dot your ears adjust. As your eyes do at dusk, the middle ear eases. Tiny bones translate air into motion, and in the cochlea, a traveling wave finds its proper place. Low pitches settle deeper, high pitches nearer the entrance. Your hearing gives cricket, reed, and duck their lanes. You test the sound field by turning your head a few degrees. The brain notes which ear hears first and which hears louder, so you can point to the cricket in the grass and the plink upstream. Left is the willow's hush, right the reeds tapping, center the hum of water moving past stone. Crickets begin to measure the hour. Each chirp is wing on wing, a rhythm that drifts with temperature. Cooler air slows muscle chemistry. The metronome eases. Frogs answer from the far bank, their calls tuned to different pitches, so they do not crowd one another. In the chorus, everyone finds a lane. Overhead, a bat carves a dark ellipse. You do not hear its highest notes, but you sense the idea. Sound sent forward, echoes returning with news about moth and branch. The bat retunes its calls fast near prey, softer when cruising matching effort to need. It passes, the moth veers, and the river's low line keeps time for both. Sound travels differently now than at noon. Near the ground, air has cooled. Higher up, lingering warmth makes a gentle lid. This inversion bends waves back toward you, carrying distant noises farther than they would by day. Over water, the path is smoother still. The duck's murmur seems nearer than the duck. Even your breath sounds close, gathered in by a world that has drawn its edges in. Some sounds are born of contact. The current fingers cattails and makes a hollow, woody note. Farther along, a loose root rubs a rock with each small sway and whispers a dry cello. These are geophony, the voices of wind, water, and ground older than insect or bird. Biophony answers living throats and stridulating. Wings layered atop the planet's baseline. The duck settles into its oval of calm. Now and then it makes a quiet check-in call, a reminder to any companion that all is ordinary. The soft note skims the surface and returns from the bank a breath later, fainter and filtered. Your brain folds the echo into distance, even subtle. Delays become rulers when the world is hushed. You draw a slow inhale and listen to the river's pink noise energy spread across octaves, comforting, because it leaves no sharp edges for the mind to snag on. Your thoughts ride it like small boats in a harbor, rocking into alignment without trying. Now, and then a fish breaks, the meniscus with the soft pop of a fingertip on glass. Circles widen, and the sound shifts as rings pass reeds and stones, each obstacle carving a sliver from the wavefront. The river edits its own sentences. With practice, you can tell bubble from insect from fin. A breeze arrives with a clean edge, and the chorus lists for a moment. Grasses lean, high notes brighten where leaves rub. Then the air softens, and the higher frequencies fade first. Humidity and warmth help trouble glide. Dryness and chill nibble it away. What remains is the vowel of the night, round and low, sung by water over stone. Your body joins the choir. Blood whispers in vessels near your ears. A faint tremor in the soft palate becomes a thread you can follow. In the cochlea, tiny engines amplify what you attend to, sharpening focus. When you widen attention, the amplification eases and the whole field returns, broad and kind. The duck rustles and resettles. You hear feathers combing the air, a sound like paper soothed by a hand. A drop shakes loose and lands with authority disproportionate to its size. Close sounds are big because your brain privileges them. Far sounds are small because the air does. Upstream, a branch taps the surface at regular intervals, a metronome set by the river's small rise and fall. The consistency is calming. The small irregularities are more calming still. The nervous system likes almost patterns predictable enough to trust, varied enough to stay soft. You begin to drowse on that edge where recognition floats and meaning quiets. You wonder how the chorus holds together without a conductor. Part is timing. Circadian clocks tilt voices toward night. Part is habitat. The river shapes who can live here and what notes they can afford. Part is physics. No singer can occupy every frequency at once, so sharing becomes structure. Harmony emerges when limits are kind, clouds thin. A slice of moon lifts, and its light touches the water into silver syllables. The sounds do not change much, but you notice them differently. The duck rests in a brighter ring. You keep still at the bank. Between you, the river writes and rewrites one long sentence that does not need to end. You close your eyes so your ears can open another degree. The chorus does not demand attention. It invites it. Layers separate and join like breath in a sleeping chest. Somewhere a last bird tries a phrase and lets it go. Somewhere a door far away closes and the sound rides the inversion to you then, dissolves into the water's hush. You breathe and listening deepens further. The bank cools your palms. The air smells faintly of wet stone. Even the spaces between sounds feel full, like pauses inside music. The night has taught you a gentle physics. Softness carries. Steadiness soothes. The dark is not emptiness, but room. You sit within that room and let the blanket of sound pull up to your chin. The duck drifts, the river hums, and the chorus becomes a cradle. You lean back until the bank supports you and lift your face to the first clean edge of the moon. It is not yet high, so light arrives aslant, combed by branches and sifted by a scrim of cloud. On the river, silver threads awaken and run, knitting and unknitting with each wind change. The duck moves, and its weight pencils a luminous V that glides forward without hurry. Moonlight is sunlight's quieter sibling, gentled by distance and the long detour through night. The beams that reach you are reflected sunlight, softened by the moon's gray dust and scattered back across the sky. When that pale light meets the ripples near your feet, it fractures into coins. Each coin brightens, blurs, and slides away, replaced by another from the next crest. This is a currency that buys nothing and calms everything. You listen for the tide, though you are inland. The moon's pull is patient, and you sense it in the river's posture, a faint lean shared with oceans beyond hills and cities. Gravity speaks softly everywhere. On coasts, sea levels rise and fall. Here, the moon pinches the planet just enough to make stone flex by a breath. Your bones live inside that hush, a body reading a sky-born metronome. The duck turns crosswise to the faint current, and the V behind it becomes a broken ladder of light. Each rung is a place where waves agree to hold brightness a breath longer. The geometry is simple angles meeting angles, yet it feels like story. You imagine the ladder reaching toward the bend, a path you could walk if water found you weightless. The moon's disk climbs, and the silver road it draws narrows, lengthens, and narrows again as ripples and breeze negotiate. Your pupils widen. Color surrenders to tone. Rod cells take the watch, noticing motion where cones once named hue. Sound and touch rise to greet what sight releases. The night becomes a slow instrument, and you the open body of its song. You remember the moon changes face because it circles the earth while the earth circles the sun. New to crescent, crescent to gibbous, gibbous to full, then back again. Tides shift their emphasis. Animals adjust their errands. Even humans, dressed in electric day, carry a lunar thread. Researchers chart the small nudge moonlight gives to body clocks. The effect is gentle, but it reaches you anyway. The duck's head traces a gentle sway. That sway is not random. It counters the push of unnoticed currents and the weight of feather. With each tiny correction, the wake brightens and dims like thoughts drifting through attention's window. You feel your own corrections at the same scale, the abdominal muscle that releases, the shoulder that lets go, the mind that turns toward quiet, as if following a star-dot cloud thins, and the silver becomes whiter, more crystalline. A breeze lays capillary waves like silk pleats. Pleats turn to combs. Combs become a shimmer that looks alive. In that shimmer, the road of light breaks into bead-small caustics, born of 1,000 tiny lenses. They drift toward you and away. Constant only in their change dot, you consider the moon's pull on water locked in you. Blood is a tide inside arteries. Lymph a tide in meadows of tissue. Cerebrospinal fluid, a quiet sea that rocks with each breath. You are a harbor, and the sky is an old tide table that never forgets you. When your exhale lengthens, the harbor stills, and an inner moonrise becomes a calm you can inhabit. The duck finds a slower glide near a patch of lilies. Round leaves collect droplets into brighter pearls, then let them fall back as stems bend. And reset. Behind the lily, darker water waits, and the duck passes from coin to shadow without preference. Where it has been, the light remembers for a little while, then folds like sleep. From the reeds, a small wind arrives, and the river murmurs. In another alphabet, the silver text rewrites itself in running phrases, then returns to single syllables. You trace one phrase with your eyes until it dissolves at your feet, and the dissolving teaches a quieter grip. Keep, release, keep, release. Dot up above. Craters and plains make a face you could name. Seas that are not water hold ancient lava darkening. A disk with shapes sailors once trusted. You think of navigators who read this companion with angles and patience. Tonight you navigate a shorter distance from shore to drifting duck, and yet it feels like an ocean's travel toward ease. You notice a tremble in the light road, a faint, regular pulse like the beat of a sleeping heart. Far downstream, a low weir steps the river. The fall repeats, and the repeating sends a rhythm back along the surface. The moonlight rides that rhythm, the way your breathing rides the shape of your ribs. You time inhales to crest and exhales to fall, letting the patterns meet and agree. The duck drifts into the longest stretch of brightness and for a moment becomes haloed. As it passes through, the halo travels with it, a moving window where image and reality line up. Then the window closes, and the bird returns to simple shadow. You do not feel loss, only the satisfaction of an answer given exactly when asked. Some ideas arrive because the world is dark enough for them. You think of the moon's slow retreat from the earth, centimeters each year, and the lengthening of days across time. You picture earlier rivers under earlier moons, and waterfowl that were not yet ducks drifting under stars with different names. The water does not remember in words, but it remembers in habits, and the habits have carried life here, now, to you. A faint halo circles the moon, ice crystals high above bending light into pale ring. Closer to the water, a smaller ring forms around the duck's head where it nudges lily stems, a circle that widens and fades. Rings into rings, sky answering river, each answering you. You close your eyes for a few breaths, and the silver persists on the backs of your lids, a soft geometry that drifts. When you open them, the duck has come a little closer, as if to check your stillness. Its eye holds a fleck of moon. It blinks. The fleck leaps to the water and splits into many. You smile without moving. The night needs no drama now. Its work is housekeeping, lowering sounds, smoothing edges, turning the visible into gentler versions of itself. The benefits accumulate the way dew accumulates, quietly, evenly, enough to soften everything it touches. Your mind, once full of corners, becomes round. The duck gives one final small stroke and lets the river carry it. The wake writes the last few bright commas of the scene. The commas say pause, not stop at all. The moon climbs a finger higher. The silver road steadies. The weir's slow heartbeat continues under all things. You take a breath as light as the skin of the river and let it go a little longer than usual. The body answers with permission written in ease. In that permission, gravity feels kind, and the moon's pull feels like company. You stay by the river as night finishes its gentle work. The water is a dark ribbon of calm, stitched with a few quiet sparks where moonlight touches a crest and then moves on. The duck is farther now, unhurried, almost a memory in motion. Wake writes commas that ask you to pause, and you do. Breath slows. The shore holds you like a patient hand. You notice how stillness carries structure. Even at rest, patterns breathe. A faint rise, a softer fall, a measured return. Your chest follows that grammar without effort. Air cools your nostrils, warms. As it leaves, and each long exhale tells the body that nothing is required. Deep inside, tiny engines idle, low iron pumps stepping lazily, muscles releasing their small fists, vessels loosening to widen flow. Quiet is both signal and instruction. The nervous system steps down through its own dimmer switches. Fast brainwaves yield to slower ones, like footsteps becoming a sway. The pineal's quiet chemistry thickens the air of the blood with drowsy signals, and heat leaves your hands and feet first, making the core steadier. Your body knows the ritual. You only need to not interrupt. The river sets the choreography, and you take your place among its slower dancers. You consider how trust is built into rest. To sleep is to hand the helm to older circuits reflexes that keep breath and heart in time, postural muscles that hold enough tone to keep joints kind, eyelids that guard the globe's softness. The duck trusts water and flock. You trust ground and breath. Across species, the bargain is the same. Yield some control to gain repair. Biology is a craftsperson who works best when the shop is quiet. The moon climbs, light thins to silver chalk, and the road it paints on the river becomes a pale thread. The duck moves along that thread until the thread seems to carry it rather than the other way around. Your thoughts do the same. They climb onto a gentle current that asks for nothing, and their edges blur until they are only direction without words. This is what drifting is, losing the need to steer. A bat takes a brief arc of sonar and is gone. In its wake, the air feels cleaner, paired to essentials. You listen for what remains, the quiet exhale of the duck, the layered hush of water past. Stone, the near-silent pop of a bubble, letting go under a leaf. These are small proofs that the world can continue without you watching. Responsibility loosens its careful knot. You count 3 slow breaths to mark the turn inward. 1. The inhale lifts the ribs like a small door. 2. The exhale flows down the spine like warm rain. 3. The pause after the outbreath opens into a room with no furniture. In that room, sleep will meet you halfway. You do not need to go farther. Images arrive, like friendly birds, and perch without weight. A feather on black water. A circle, widening and vanishing. A path of light that keeps forming, even when no one walks it. The brain rehearses these gentle loops so that in dreams it can keep you safe with softness. Narrative unthreads into rhythm. Rhythm settles into tone. Tone thins into a bright hush. You notice the simple physics that cradle you. Pressure spreads where you touch the ground. Pain nerves quiet when they have nothing sharp to report. The curve of your neck aligns with the slope of the shore, and spinal discs sip water, grateful for the horizontal kindness. Heat rises in small, invisible rivers from skin to air, and in return, cooler air lands like dew. Exchanges keep balance while you do nothing. The duck at last becomes a darker shape within darkness, a quiet line moving toward reeds that hold their own black. Water closes behind it, seam unbroken. The wake's last commas fade. On the bank, insects tilt toward silence. The weir's heartbeat, still there, tucks itself under everything else until it feels like a thought you forgot to think. Sleep gathers at the edges first, then pours inward. You feel it as a gravity of comfort, drawing limbs and lids along the easiest slope. Strong intentions become light suggestions. Plans unwrap to their simple cores, warmth, safety, continuity, and then even those rest. Breath is the only motion. That keeps its license, and even breath grows shy of effort. It does not enter and leave. It arrives and departs. Some part of you watches kindly as the rest of you lies down. That witness is small and merciful. It will step back soon, closing the door without a click. Before it does, it checks the map. Heart steady, lungs slow, muscles ready to give themselves to repair, mind willing to be unmade and remade by the old night factory. Everything is green-lighted. You smile without moving. The duck stirs once, rearranges a feathered thought, and settles. You mirror it, shifting a shoulder a finger's breadth to release a thread you didn't know was taut. Silence answers instantly, approving. The river holds a stillness so balanced that it seems solid, yet your ears know it moves. Both truths can be true and are more restful together than apart. You allow the last pieces of waking to dissolve. The title of the day, the arithmetic. Of hours, the names of stones and stars. What remains is position and pulse, and even those soon become background. The front of the mind empties, the back hums. The line between you and the river loosens into a soft seam, and water and body share one cadence. Now your breath and the river's pulse belong to the same sentence. Inhale, the faintest swell. Exhale, the glossy fall. Nothing else needs grammar. Your eyelids cool. Your hands become warm anchors on a raft you do not have to steer. The raft is the bed of the world. The current is time reduced to comfort. In this exact moment, you do not reach forward or back. The present becomes wide enough to sleep in. The moon owns the sky, but not your attention. The duck owns the distance, but not your longing. You own nothing and are held by everything. That is the secret at the door of dreams. You whisper a thank you do not finish. The breath that began, it completes the sentence for you, then leaves. The word on the bank. The river carries it the rest of the way. Your body hears the message anyway, because gratitude is mostly sensation. A chest widening, a jaw easing, a forehead unknitting into smooth night. The last thing you notice is small and perfect. The smell of wet stone, part mineral, part memory. It is the scent of heat given back, of day surrendering to balance. The brain files it as safety. Safe is the key that opens the long stair down. You step onto that stair without moving. One step, then another, each one broader and softer than the last. At the bottom there is no door, only a curtain of dark that feels like velvet and belongs to you. You lift it with a breath and enter. Asterisk in the softest current, you release the need to watch the water, and the river goes on speaking for you, wordless and kind, until morning remembers your name. And now, as our story gently fades, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for spending this moment with me. Your presence here means the world, and your support helps me create even more peaceful journeys. Just for you. If this helped you rest, please consider liking, subscribing, or simply coming back tomorrow night. Until then, stay cozy, stay kind, and may your dreams tonight be soft, serene, and full of wonder. Good night, my friend. With warmth, David.